was this initial press that was happening, and it was, but it wasn't too intrusive.
No.
At the time, were there requests for you to appear on daytime or anything?
Daytime talk shows. Did Larry King in the beginning there when the film The Bridge came out. Did every major. I've done every major news publication there is.
Right.
Between the UK, Canada, Australia, and America, I've done most of their major press.
But focusing on the original, did you get any negative feedback from the initial stories?
You know the power of trolls, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I got a lot of people writing me hate mail. I had one guy. Oh my God, I was so mad. I had one guy when the film Bridge came out, right in one of those cut out letters from every letter was different from a different magazine, and it spelled out something to the effect of, "If you go to the premiere of this film in San Francisco, you and your father will be killed."
Wow.
Yeah. They said, don't change something about, some note about don't change the bridge, as beautiful as it is. If you go to the premiere of the film The Bridge, you and your father will be murdered.
What year was The Bridge released?
Film in 2004, came out in 2006.
So by 2006, the world had changed. That's the year that iPhone came out.
This was in a manila envelope that came to our house. It was fucking terrifying.
Yeah. Wow.
Pardon my French.
Yeah, no, understandable.
It was terrifying. And that was not the only death threat we got. Got about 4 or 5 death threats total in my career. My father got about 2 of those 4. They would lump him in with me, And then 4 or 5 death threats. The most thing we got though on the troll thing was how I should try to kill myself again and do it right this time. I had a guy say to me on a Chronicle article at the end of a Chronicle article about saving lives. The trolls get on there and it's online. It says. Kevin, this is a quote, "Kevin, why don't you put a diving board on the bridge, tie an anvil to your legs, and do it right this time? ... Please."
Sad. And how do you react to that?
Well, I would naively in the back of the day I'd get really pissed off.
Right.
And my dad or my sisters, I wouldn't write back. Somebody would write back and say, "Screw you," Then I realized that we are surrounded in a world of shamers and haters. Not all of us, not you and me, not the upstanding good people, not the integrity-filled people, but there are people who wish ill upon anyone and everyone as much as they can. What most people don't know, Coach, about my story, is that the night I wrote my suicide note, before I wrote that note, I was on my computer, an old Apple, one of those old green covered apples, big ones. I'm online. My dad had just installed the internet. I'm online, and I wrote in one word. You know what the word was. If I tell you, you'll know it. I wrote in one word. What popped up immediately were websites to help you take your life. Wow. Just because they want everyone to die. Everyone, anyone. Now, Coach, these websites are intrinsically connected literally to deaths all over the world. This is a place, this is a hub where it says all kinds of ways you can end you. And you should do it because we want you to. In this website I found, it said, and I quote, "If you live in San Francisco and you go to the Golden Gate Bridge and you jump, you will die on impact. Good luck!" ! That's the world we live in. And those people should be in prison for murder.
And instead they're probably making money.
Instead they're making a lot of money. A lot of money. Especially with how trolls make money in general. These people don't really care about these causes. These people don't really care about you not doing what you're doing or doing what you're doing, or they don't really hate you. They're on there trolling because it feeds their bank account.
Right.
And they're very large bank accounts.
And
there's a lot of money in trolling.
It's both financial and psychological.
They hate people.
There's a reward that they adrenaline, dopamine. That it's just kind of like, I look at it as graffiti in San Francisco.
Yes.
You walk around and most people appreciate the beauty of the city, and then there's those, and you'll be surprised by the people who truly are the trolls or the taggers. There's a different personality that you may know, and then they go and yet they do this destructive stuff that there's a satisfaction that they get out of.
There's a dopamine surge in their brains every time someone responds to their trolling.
Right.
It's just the same dopamine exchange when someone responds to a like on Facebook. or a retweet on Twitter, or an IG post on Instagram. What social media does to the brain, especially of the youth who don't have fully functioning developed brains, is change their brain. We all like Facebook and Instagram and social media and Twitter because it feeds our brains a rush of dopamine that makes us have a surge of feeling better. But if those likes turn to hate, it has the opposite effect of causing depression.
Right.
And now cyberbullying is 63% more dangerous to life than physical bullying. Bullying online says to the 16-year-old kid, how old are your daughters?
12.
12. They're going to be 16 soon, in high school. And they're going to have people that write shitty things to them online. And because children don't have the brain power to recognize that's not permanent, they don't have the brain power to recognize that this doesn't mean that everyone in the world sees it. That's what they believe. They believe if you fat shame, sexually shame someone on Instagram or Twitter who's in high school, they believe that the whole world has seen it. And then these individual kids are developing depression and going and taking their lives, and that blood is on the hands of every child that's ever hazed, bullied, or harassed someone online or in person. That blood is on their hands.
And it's easier to do it when you're hiding behind a screen.
They can be nice people in real life.
Yeah.
They're nice to you as an adult. Like, hey, mister, your daughters have friends. They're going to have friends in high school. Those friends are going to appeal to your sensibilities because they want you to like that you like their daughter, and they're friends with their daughter. They want you to accept that. But those very same kids could go home behind a device having an extra account on Instagram, and they could be hating on your daughters while looking you in the eye and saying, "Hi, Mr. Joshua, you're amazing, and so are your kids."
Right. And how did you have you come across victims of cyberbullying, and if so, how do you address that?
I do all the time, and part of my presentation to high school, grade school, and college students is to express to them how to learn to cope with pain, how to learn how to be resilient in the face of somebody else trying to hurt you. And my biggest ending part of the presentation, I say something to the effect of this. Your words, especially the high school, grade school kids, your words have the power to do one of two things: damage and destroy, or help and heal. Damage and destroy, or help and heal. I was viciously bullied in grade school and high school, viciously, and it caused a great deal of my clinical depression. I'm going to ask you a question, and I say it really loud and proud. I say, I'm giving you my all, you give me yours. I scream in front of 2,000, 3,000 kids. What will your words do to those you know, love, care about, don't know from Adam, or don't like at all? Will they damage and destroy, or help and heal? And we scream this. I scream it at them, and 98% of the kids respond aloud simultaneously: help and heal. Does that mean they're going to do it? Not necessarily, but in that moment they believe it. And they scream it. 3,000 kids scream simultaneously: help and heal.
And their eyes are open to it.
Their eyes are open to it. And I have had countless classrooms and teachers of those classrooms, countless, probably thousands, write to me. Teachers write to me afterward and say, at the end of your presentation, all the kids came down off the bleachers and started apologizing to one another. It happens at most speeches.
How did you get into the public speaking, and where did it start? How did you fall into that?
I literally fell into it.
Oh, didn't mean to set you up for that one.
I had to do it. I have closure people. It's okay. Calm down, listeners. Don't get upset. I literally fell into it. In the psych ward, there was a Franciscan friar chaplain named Brother George Sherry. He had white hair, the black robe, the white robe, the red rosary in one hand. He looked like St. Francis without the birds. Brother George Sherry, every time he'd walk into any hospital room to assess a patient and give them a prayer, every time he would look at the chart to see why they were there. For 30 years, Brother George Sherry looked at the chart before he ever entered a room. He entered my room without looking at the chart for the first time in his career. And he thought, I'll just go in there because he's hurt and I need help him. So he comes in, and he comes to my left side, and he puts his hand on my forehead. And he says a prayer. He says, will you pray with me? I said, we pray the Our Father, we pray the Hail Mary, and he gave a few prayers I didn't know by heart, but I knew of them, just not by heart. And he prayed that I would get better and that I would find hope and find recovery and live a good life. At the end of that prayer, he looked at me and said, kid, when you get better, you want to talk about this. And I looked at him. I said, about what? To who? He said, you'll see. And he left. Every single day of the 4.5 week stay in the psych ward, he would say at the end of his prayer, kid, when you get better, you want to talk about this. The second to last time he came in, he said, kid, you got to talk about this. On the last day of my stay, he came in and he said, kid, I expect you'll talk about this. And I laughed. I just went like this, like, okay, buddy, sure, pal. Who the hell am I going to tell this to? What good would that do? I didn't know what he meant. What he meant was, depending on the way it's said, there is great power in the spoken word. And, I mean, the first day he came in, he goes, hey, kid, what are you in for? And he's smiling. And I'm wearing I'm putting on my back brace, and I'm holding my cane in my right hand. I go, brother, I jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge. He goes, yeah, and I'm the Pope. He didn't believe me. He thought I was delusional because I was in the psych ward. I said, no, brother. That's why I'm putting on this brace, and that's why I'm holding this cane. I took off my brace and I showed him my scar, which wasn't healed yet. And I leave that hospital with my cane in my back brace and my father at my left arm holding my elbow. We get in the car, and the very next Sunday we go to church. The church I grew up as a kid, St. Cecilia's, where I would be married, where I would be confirmed, where I was baptized. So my dad takes me to church, and the then Father Michael Harriman, who's now Monsignor. Oh, no, he's retired, 4 years now. The then Father Harriman turned Monsignor comes out of the service at the end. He immediately comes up to me, and my father passes up. Everybody else comes up to me and my dad. My dad is helping me down the stairs, holding my left elbow as I held my cane in my right hand, hobbling. He stops us. We go back up the stairs. He says, Kevin, how do you feel about sharing your experience this Good Friday with our 7th and 8th grade class? And I looked at him and I said, Father, I don't have a speech and I wouldn't know what to say. And that's when Kevin Hines took his oven mitt-sized hands, shoved me forward, and said, he'll do it. And I turned around and said, what are you doing? He goes, you'll do it. We need closure. I said, you need closure, old man. I need to go and lay down. He goes, Kevin, you're doing this. And when Kevin Hines says things twice, you do it, or else it gets worse. So the night before Good Friday, which was my speech was on Good Friday, 7 months after my attempt, I'm still wearing the brace and the cane. I read a speech until 3 in the morning. At 8 in the morning, my dad edits the speech. He edited out my mom's part of the speech. Because he says to me, she didn't help you, I did. He was angry, and they were divorced for a while, and the speech had a point about thanking my mom, and he edited it out, and I okayed it because I didn't want to piss him off. She was very upset about that later, but that's a whole other story. So I get to the rectory at St. Cecilia's, where I had grown up going to the rectory every day. And 120 kids in their Catholic uniforms that I used to wear are sitting cross-legged on the floor. And I'm looking at these kids going, what the hell am I doing here? How is me saying this story I wrote yesterday going to help anybody in this room? It's not. This is a waste of my time. I'm holding 17 pages in my hand. It took me 45 minutes to read it aloud. I dropped with my thumb, page by page, to the floor every time I finished it. But the entire duration of the 45 minutes, I was crying, my eyes out, shaking like a leaf, holding my cane, wobbling, wearing my back brace, outside of my shirt. And I think to myself, who is this? What am I doing? And this was a waste of my time. I finished the speech. I still have that speech written down in my old Mac computer. I finished the speech thinking what a waste of time it was. And 8 kids raised their hands immediately, without even being prompted. The first question that was asked was, can you still have sex?
Oh, God.
Yeah, in a Catholic school.
Elementary.
They weren't too happy about that. They were saying, like, with your broken back, can you still do that? It was a little type of a jerk kid, you know. He had freckles. He was trying to be the new me. class clown. And the last 7 questions were amazing, intuitive, reflective, educational. They're powerful. And I thought, well, this had an impact. And then Father and Monsignor Michael Harriman called me 2 weeks later to come to the rectory. My dad was at work. I had no bus fare. I walked from Park Merced. You know Park Merced section?
Oh, definitely.
I walked from Park Merced at 568 Arbala to the rectory of St. Cecilia's School. How many miles is that, would you say?
2.5, 3.
2.5. I walked 3 miles, sweating like an animal the entire way through my back. I sweat all the way through my shirt, all the way to my back brace. Everything was soaked. It was an interestingly hot day in San Francisco. And I make my way, out of breath, having an asthma attack, to the front door of the rectory. And Monsignor opens the door, and he says, here. And he hands me a manila envelope and says to come to his office. We go to his office, I sit down, I open the manila envelope. A folder that was made by the kids with I think it was a colored pencil drawing of Jesus, an original drawing of Jesus with the Sacred Heart, and the word over the heart was, the heart says faith, and then under that was, peace be with you. So one of the kids had drawn me a folder that was Jesus with the Sacred Heart, and it said, peace be with you, and it said faith on it somewhere. And that's all I needed. I didn't need anything else. But then you open up the folder, and there's 120 letters from 120 kids.
Wow.
Now, I'm no fool. They were mandated to write those letters. Just 7th and 8th grade kids didn't get together and go, let's all write to the suicidal guy.
Yeah.
But they were mandated.
But they don't tell them what to write.
They don't tell them what to write. And because those letters were not modern, because they didn't tell them what to write, because they didn't tell them what they could and couldn't say to me, they said everything they needed to say. Most of the letters, the majority of the 120 letters, was from kids saying thank you in one way or another, right? Gratitude. But 6 of those letters were from kids in that class that were in the room of my speech that were actively suicidal. And they're minors, so what do you think happened to letters before they got to me?
They were screened.
They were screened letters.
Right.
And every one of those 6 kids is alive today.
Wow.
Right? I didn't do that. They did that. They heard a message that affected their brains because I understand the art and science of storytelling and how to do it to save lives. And I handed those letters to my father. He read every single one. He said, Kevin, we have to do this however, wherever, and whenever possible. We never stopped.
So since then, how many speeches have you?
I'll make it easier. I travel 320 days a year every year, roughly, between 300 and 320 days a year every year, telling a story in a different city every day. I have physically, in person, reached between 2 and 3 million people that are physically in front of me for the last 18 years. I have virally reached, via the different videos we have, somewhere between 500 million and 1 billion people.
Wow.
Through social media, through videos online. So that's the true new definition of a billionaire, is affecting 1 billion lives.
Wow.
That's the new definition of a billionaire. I don't want to be a billionaire with money. That's way too much money and that's way too many problems. The new definition of a billionaire is affecting positively 1 billion lives, which we've done.
That's inspiring. And you've done it. First you start in the speaking. Then someone, without you, I think, knowing about it in advance, created the movie The Bridge.
Yes, yeah. Eric Steele did a movie about 24 lives lost to the bridge. He put a camera on both ends of the bridge for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the entirety of an entire year. For a full calendar year, he had cameras running 24 hours a day on a time lapse, capturing what was going on. And
so you had an interview as part of that film.
Yeah, he came to my halfway home. I was in a halfway home for the mentally ill after my 3rd psych ward stay in 2004, and they allowed him to come in, which they didn't allow any outsiders to ever come into the halfway home, but they allowed Eric Steele in because I worked really hard to get them to. He comes in, and he says, I'm making a movie about the suicides on the Golden Gate Bridge. Didn't give me any premise. He said, I want you to be in an interview in the film. Well, in the film Suicide the Ripple Effect, which you haven't seen it, which you're going to see tonight or wherever you watch it, I'm going to send you the link. Eric Steele's in the film, and he talks about how he had never picked up a camera before that film. This critically acclaimed, multi-award-winning movie, The Bridge, he never picked up a camera before. He was a financier, an executive producer of many films like the Samuel L. Jackson movie, the blaxploitation movie. What was that called? The character that was in the '80s, Flash. Doesn't matter. I'll figure it out later. Samuel L. Jackson played a role in the 1990s or early 2000s where he played the role of a former blaxploitation television show. And Eric Steele executive produced that film. He financed that film. He's a very wealthy guy, and he finances movies for a living. He financed, this is an easier one to do, he financed Meryl Streep's movie Julia, about Julia Child.
Got it.
He financed it. That was a $180 million picture that he found the money for. But he wanted to do something more. He wanted to do something that affected lives like no narrative film could. And he was fascinated by the fact that the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge hasn't shut down, given the fact that they have one person dies there every 7 to 10 days for the last 40 years. The film is completely unbiased. It doesn't tell you what to think. It shows you something horrific and says, what do you think? People wanted him to hang from a tree, and I don't mean that in the figurative sense. He made this film and he got more death threats than anybody. He made this film and they said it was voyeuristic and narcissistic and disgusting and deplorable, and that it shows death is horrible. Here's my argument. We make war-related documentaries every day. We show the blood, the gut, the gore, the bombs that explode that kill people. What's the difference? Those films win awards. What's the difference? He showed America and the world something that was being quieted and hushed for 80 years. And he is the sole reason my father founded the Bridge Rail Foundation, whose purpose was to raise a net rail at the Golden Gate Bridge. And as of January 21, 2021, when the net is finished being built, being in construction right now, not one more gorgeous soul like me will ever again jump or die off the Golden Gate Bridge for the rest of our lives. It will become the largest and brightest beacon for suicide prevention.